Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asset Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Mathieu Jacques. I had a great episode today with Mike Tarnowski. He is the mayor of the Russell Township, which is a small community located into the Eastern Ontario region. We had a chance to discuss a multitude of topics among upcoming projects in the community. As well as what's a day in the life for this mayor? How do you implement changes? What are the toughest part of the job? And expansions in multitude of different communities. We have Limoges, Embrun, Russell, Marionville, among smaller ones as well. It was a great episode. Watch it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Mayor Tarnowski, thank you for coming onto the podcast. You're the mayor of the Russell Township, located in Embrun, Russell, parts of Limoges, among smaller communities as well. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mathieu. Pleasure to be here. And also, let's not forget parts of Marionville as well.
Yes, of course. That's right, eh? Yeah. And that's 3 townships combined, is it?
Marionville is an interesting one for sure. So yeah, absolutely. They're depending on the side of the street you live on, a little bit like Limoges, but they have 3 different municipalities they deal with. We're very lucky. We get along great with the other municipalities, so we work really well together to the benefit of the residents for sure.
Good. That must be a tricky nuance because there's 3 that must be kept into account, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's easy to say, oh, sorry, that's not on our side of the street. We don't have to pay for that or whatever, right?
That's
so
it.
For the residents, they don't care. It's like, hey, fix this.
Don't want to get that conflict there.
Exactly.
Of course. That makes sense. Well, so I wanted to ask you, firstly, what inspired you to become a mayor?
Sure. Well, that's a great question, Mathieu, and I'm always happy to share that because I would like to encourage more people to get involved in civic, kind of giving back. And so I've always been involved in our community. I originally come from Montreal. And big city, not knowing too many people. So when we established in Embrun, my wife Tracy and I, and we started having kids, I really loved the small town feel and wanted to get involved, wanted to give back as well. And so it started with the kids, obviously, with getting involved in sports organizations and community events, and just giving back my time that way. I eventually got into the library board, so I sat on the library board. I was on the residents committee group for the Parks and Recreation Committee, and just giving back a bit of time because I felt very lucky where we live, having such a great place for our kids to grow up and so on. And so part of my role at the library board was trying to push for us to get an Embrun library back, and I found the politicians weren't talking enough about the value of that library. And so in 2018, I put my name in the race for councillor with the goal to just have everyone talk about libraries. I figured if I'd go up there and just talked about libraries, the other people wanting to get elected to council would talk about libraries, and whether I won or not, it would push that
Try to
that
spark
agenda.
up
the
conversation.
And so lo and behold, I got elected in 2018 as a councillor, and I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't planning on it. I still had a full-time job at Algonquin College, and so it was a bit of a surprise, but a real pleasant surprise, and actually turned out that I loved the involvement and being able to actually make a difference. And I think the municipal level of government is probably the one that has the biggest impact on residents, right? Because you see it day to day. If we make a decision, around garbage or something like that, you'll experience that day to day. At provincial, federal, yes, it has impacts on your day to day, but not as direct. And
That's
so
it.
I feel, and we're as close to the ground, to the residents as we can be. I am a resident, I walk, go to the grocery store, talk to residents, in the parks or whatever. So I really enjoyed that. And in 2022, the election came up, and I was just happy to get reelected as a councillor again, continue some of the projects and ideas that started. And then last year in May, when our former mayor, Monsieur Leroux, decided to move on, I was asked if I was interested in taking the role, and it worked out well where I could retire from my other job and take this on full time.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's a very good formative experience, right?
Yeah.
That's what I had pinned down. So you have experience, or you worked at the Algonquin College. You were a teacher there, were you?
Yeah,
Or?
so my background is hospitality tourism management. I used to run hotels up until 95 when family started. I wanted to kind of have more of a life with my family. And so my last job before working at the college was running a hotel in Montreal.
Very interesting.
And
My parents own a hotel down in Hearst.
oh, really, eh?
Actually, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I love that. I've worked in the hospitality industry all my life.
So that's it. You know how to be hospitable with people, right? So
Absolutely,
that's a
yeah.
good trait to have,
I'm a
of course,
very
if you're going to be a
service.
leader.
Yeah, service. For me, my leadership style is very service. In French, we say attitude de servitude. Like for me, that's important. And so, absolutely, that was kind of my goal. So I was working in business, and then I started at the college in teaching hospitality tourism, and then in 2018 I moved to the role of academic chair in the School of Business, and I did that till I retired last May, and which was fantastic, great opportunity, and as a teacher, fantastic job where I had summers off with my family, was able to really spend a lot of time with the kids, and to me, quality of life is
Of course.
really important. Yeah.
That makes total sense. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. And so you mentioned that your term had started in 2022. That's what you said?
Yeah,
And
the last term, this current term that we're on goes from 22 to 2026.
okay, that's what I was about to ask there. Excuse me for the
No,
naivety
no
there.
problem. No problem at all. No
We
problem.
seem to be more aware of, I guess, the federal area of it. And I
Federal,
want to educate
provincial, yeah.
myself on the, yes, provincial, of course, but I want to educate myself more on the municipal level. Like, as you said, we feel the impact of decisions right as they're made.
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
municipal
Has the
level.
biggest impact on your day to day for sure.
That's it.
And so, yeah, we typically go for 4-year terms. And so it was 2018 to 22, 22 to 26. So our next election will be in the fall of 2026.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So talking about the day to day then, what's a typical day in the life look for you?
Well, that's what I love about this role is there is no real typical day. So this is technically not supposed to be a full-time job, but as I mentioned before, I could not do this and have a full-time job, and that's why the retirement came in perfectly. So my typical days vary, obviously, but I generally like to come into the office sometime in the morning. I'll go over my emails and everything else, review my schedule. I typically have, 2-3 meetings scheduled per day, either with residents, organizations, or even staff for that matter, to make sure that, we understand certain, projects coming up and so on. And we do, the mayor is the one that gets all the emails from residents if they're not happy, if their garbage didn't get picked up or whatever. And as the spokesperson for council, I typically respond to residents, when they have concerns or have questions or want to, provide us some feedback and so on. So I spend a fair bit of time doing that as well. And that's kind of the big picture. And we have every 2 weeks, we have a council meeting. So the week before the council meeting, the agenda comes out on the Wednesday before the following Monday. And so there's the preparation of the agenda, and then there is the preparation for the meeting. So as the mayor, you're chairing the meeting, so you have to be really well prepared, understanding what's going to happen, what are some of the questions that may come up. You really have to have a good feel for all the files that are being covered. So there's a fair bit of education that comes with that to be on point.
Of course, you got to be well aware and
Yeah,
understand pretty much
exactly.
everything that's going to be discussed.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know is, as the mayor, now we do have what they call strong mayor rules that just came into play in a lot of municipalities. As a matter of fact, the provincial government just gave it to another 200 municipalities. Strong mayor is essentially the ability for a mayor to act almost like as a CEO of an organization, so have a lot more power, if you want, compared to the traditional mayor role. So in Russell Township, it's traditional role still. And the reason the mayor didn't get these strong mayor powers, which I'm very happy I don't have, is that we have a small enough council that we're still nimble enough to make good decisions. But in any municipality where there is a larger council, the province just gave out these strong mayor powers. So
Okay.
I really like the situation we have there is basically, when we make decisions, I don't even vote on all the files. So there's, on either side of me, I have 2 councillors. We have 4 councillors and the mayor. So when decisions come up for council to make decisions on, if there is a tie, 2-2, then I vote. But otherwise, I never vote. So a lot of times it's not even up to me to make the decisions. It's really the council that makes the decisions.
Very, very
And that's
interesting.
something that people don't know.
And so you were on the council.
That's correct.
Since 2018?
Since
Was that it?
2018.
So that was good exposure in order to understand the actual
Role of mayor,
I
yeah.
guess the role of mayor.
Absolutely. On the outside, you don't think about it. You think, oh, the mayor, well, you have all the power. You can make anything happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really not the case.
And so how about for those municipalities that I guess the mayor has more power now? What was the reasoning to get that going? Is it because of perhaps some over-regulation or some sticks being put in the wheels so a mayor could have more impact or more decision power? What was the rationale?
Mathieu, so the rationale by the provincial government to do that is to move faster and be more nimble in terms of decision making. Again, I'm not judging whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. History will dictate that, but they've done it in some of the larger municipalities already. To get the budget going forward. So you can imagine if you have a council of 10 or 15 councillors with different wards and different priorities, trying to pass a budget, trying to move ahead with some of the direction that the province wants in terms of development and so on, it would get bogged down because, my ward, I don't want this to happen, so I'm going to vote against it. And it's really hard to get movement. So that strong mayor power allows them to move a little bit more in a nimble fashion. But because we're a small council, it's a lot easier for us to have good discussions and come up to a consensus.
Yeah,
So
totally fair.
I think it works out really well for us.
Totally fair. Yeah. So can I ask you, what's the most fulfilling part of your job? Because it must bring a lot of, feeling of fulfillment like that.
Yeah, not looking at Facebook is very fulfilling. No, I'm kidding. Listen, I've always been involved and I'm a big believer in giving back to the community. And I know it's a statement that's used a lot. I have, as the mayor now, a lot of opportunity to encourage people to get more involved in their community, to highlight people that are doing amazing stuff in our community. And I think that to me is the most fulfilling. So just to give you an idea, was it 1 or 2 meetings ago, I had a chance to give out the keys to the municipality to and some awards to the Kin Club of Russell, which have done amazing things, not only for Russell Township, but for a lot of organizations with their Catch the A's program. And so as the mayor, I'm the one that is able to recognize that. So yes, we have some challenging files. Yes, we have, some difficult decisions to make along the way, but recognizing some of the amazing people that live in our community, that to me is a highlight for my job. Because as much as you think, oh, this person's really nice, there's some amazing people that you learn about. And in this position, I get to see that. So I think it's very rewarding.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I find myself in a very rewarding place as well, helping people get housing in those municipalities, working out of Limoges actually, and we do a lot of business in Embrun, Russell, Limoges area, or Prescott, Russell in general, and that's also very fulfilling.
Absolutely.
So it's what gets us going in the morning, right? It's
Yeah.
important to have a mission, I'd say.
Absolutely. I think, if you're just doing a job because you have to pay your mortgage or whatever, like you need to find something that's fulfilling. Life's too short to, I mean, obviously there are realities there where you have to pay your bills and so on, but really try to find something that you're passionate about, that you feel you're rewarded for.
Agreed.
For me, education was the same thing when I was a teacher at the college. You see your graduates moving on and being successful and doing great things, and you're like, they come back to you or email you, oh, thank you so much for that. You really helped me understand this. And to me, there's no paycheck that can equate that.
That's it, eh? Yeah, I agree. So what would you say is the hardest part of your job now?
Sure. So going back to making some difficult decisions. At the end of the day, we have a population of 20 plus thousand people. We have a silent majority, but we have some people that are relatively vocal as well. And any decision that we take, obviously, there's always multiple sides to the coin. So the fact that we're a council, when we make a decision, we look at all the pros and cons and make decisions for the community. That there's a lot of weight on your shoulders for that. So give an example. In the last term, there was a discussion on making a heritage district in Russell, and the heritage district in Russell really was to protect that main street and along the Castor River, to protect that kind of small town village feel.
Yes.
But it also, doing that also kind of creates barriers to the owners of those homes in terms of how they want to maybe upgrade them and so on. So many residents were extremely happy to do that. Many residents not living on the street were extremely happy to see that. But there were also many residents who were like, no, you can't, we don't want too much government involvement telling me what kind of window I could put in or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenging one because both sides had very good arguments. And so I think those kind of decisions to me are always, because you're dealing with someone's, life, their in French we say façon d'être, like this is my home and you're going to tell me what I can and can't do. So for me, it ended up we went against it, which I think was the best decision at the time. But there are some difficult decisions. The other aspect, Mathieu, is like we're responsible for providing services to residents. I'm a resident, and so we're always balancing what we want to give versus how much it costs. And, like at the end of the day, someone has to pay for it. So it goes in your taxation. And so I'm wary about adding taxation, but at some point, you have to make that decision. Do we want that service or not? We're building a $105 million rec complex right now with an indoor pool, phenomenal facility, beautiful community hall. Some residents think it's too much money and it's a waste. And other residents go, oh my God, it's about time we get that. So, those are challenging decisions for sure. But
there's always both sides
part of the gig.
coin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So you just hinted at an upcoming project. Can you perhaps hint at more or tell us about some investments that are coming in the area that you're excited about?
Sure. Well, so our big one is the rec complex. I moved to Embrun in 1995. My wife was part of the committee that was trying to get an indoor pool at the time when our kids were young. It never happened. I mean, we were a little bit small of a community, but now we have the size to be able to sustain, and we're developing, so be able to sustain a facility like that. So since 2018, when I first came on council, we started putting money aside, and I relate this story a lot to real estate, so this is probably a good place to say it. But what we did in 2018 is we started doing a small increase on taxation every year since then, just for the rec complex. And the idea behind that was when we were ready to move forward with the project, which is now a $105 million project, we would have had like a down payment if you want.
Yeah.
And not only, it's not a big hit. And not only that, once the project's completed, those little incremental increases in taxes will support the operation of it as well. So support the payment, say the mortgage payment if you want, and the operation of it. So because what we were very concerned about at the time, and it was a very smart move, I think, on behalf of council and staff giving us direction there, is that we didn't want residents, in 2026, when the doors open, all of a sudden your taxes go up 20% to pay for this thing.
Exactly.
Because that would not be good. So
No,
so that's a huge that's a huge project. Very excited. So that's got a indoor pool, 3 ice surfaces, and a beautiful
Three.
community center.
That's big.
Yeah, it's
Well, I guess
big. Yeah.
105 million.
Yeah,
You can do
yeah,
quite a lot with that
yeah.
then.
It's interesting because in 2018, when we started, it was a $90 million project. But with inflation, as you know, everything went up in price and continues to go.
Yes.
And we're actually working very hard now with our provincial counterparts to try to get some funding to help us. Although we've got a very sound financial plan, we're trying to get some money from the government. As a matter of fact, we're waiting on some feedback now in the next month or so. I'm hoping to be able to announce some amazing news for our community. We'll see what happens. On top of that, the other thing, Mathieu, that we're really excited about is a new purpose-built library in Embrun. I told you at the beginning of the podcast that was a mission for me, and I'm really happy to see that come through. And that, we since probably for the last 3-4 years have been looking at different ideas of what we could do. There was some discussions of bringing it into the old community center in Embrun. But it would cost so much money to upgrade it that it would have worked, but it wouldn't have been ideal. But we partnered with La Coop d'Embrun, and which are a phenomenal community organization, and together we're developing a brand new purpose-built library right on Notre Dame, right at the corner there where the trail ends.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, such a beautiful addition to Embrun. And because we're redoing all of Notre Dame in the next 2 years, from the roundabout up until the M&Ms there.
Okay.
All that is being redone for infrastructure upgrading and so on. Because that's being redone, we're probably going to end up adding a crosswalk there, and
That's it.
So it'll be a really nice addition. So I'm very, very
that's great.
excited about that.
And can I question a bit about the library then? So, as we see more and more of the flow of information, it seems to have become digital. So building a physical library, is the goal to bring more education facilities in the long term, or what's the ultimate goal of getting physical information when digital information is much cheaper?
Yeah, so it's a question of how you look at a library. So libraries have evolved a lot. Our library, if you go to the Russell Library right now, it's more of a gathering place than a place where you go necessarily to get a book. Sure, that's still there. That'll always be there. A lot of the libraries have a lot of digital information as well. So through my library card in Russell, through your library card, because you're a Russell resident as well, you can look at the Globe and Mail, the latest magazines, everything else, and it's right on your iPad or whatever. So that still exists. The physical ability to go get a book still exists. But where the power of the library is, it's really a gathering community space. All the libraries, and this one will be no exception, are built with community space, so local groups can go there and have their weekly meetings or monthly meetings.
Okay,
It
so there
doesn't
would
cost
be
anything.
conference rooms in there
Yeah,
as
so
well,
like
or some-
community or meeting rooms. If you have
Okay.
a small group that wants to get together, there's all kinds of activities, knitting clubs and so on.
That's it.
And it's really a central community hub that's for the community, and it's evolving as the needs evolve as well. The libraries right now, they have. It was popular. I'm not sure it'll still be popular in a few years, but we have an older crowd that is just really uncomfortable. So you can go there, borrow an iPad, get someone to help you learn how to use the iPad, whatever. So it's so much more than a place to go get books, because you're absolutely right. A lot of people, the Kindle is king for us. I get all my books through Kindle and so on. So it's not about that. It's about bringing community together. There's like the kids play area as well, and so mother children or with parents come in with groups and so on. So really amazing to see when you go to a library now. Like, it's nothing what you remember. Sure, there's still books there. There will always be books there, but I think it's down to like less than 50% of what they're all about.
That's true. That's true. It's been a while since I've been inside one. And so, do you have a projection as to when that project would be complete?
Sure, it should be done in 2026.
Okay.
They're just working, so it's La Coop d'Embrun that's spearheading the project. We're going to be leasing the main floor, which will be the whole library, and again, it's purpose built, so roughly similar size, maybe a little bit bigger than the one in Russell. But again, because it's purpose built, it's being built as a library, so we know it's going to be really utilized to the best of its ability. And so the co-op is working with the library board and with Township to make sure that, they're building something that meets the needs of the community, which is fantastic.
Beautiful.
So, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's it. And on the investor's point of view, what makes the Russell Township attractive, in your opinion?
Sure. Well, we're in full growth mode right now, and it's not showing many signs of slowing down. I think from an investment perspective, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to see some of the new commercial ventures coming in. There's two things around on the investment side for me, outside of the real estate piece, which I know is your focus, but for me, it's a development of commercial and industrial. So we have an industrial park that's growing as well. The provincial government's invested and supporting us in developing and growing that industrial park. And if you look at from a tax perspective, tax levy perspective, typical industry per $100,000 values of industrial brings us 3 times as much in terms of taxes compared to residential. And then if you look at commercial, not as much, but at least double. And as our community grows, there is a demand for more commercial as well. So you're seeing that, we have a Food Basics that is going to be opening up in Embrun. And contrary to popular belief, we can't control who opens what business. We just create the zoning, and then we do have community development, economic development officers that support businesses that want to come in, but we don't control. So often on Facebook, I see, another pizza joint being opened, and we have no control. It's not us that says, hey, we need more pizza.
You don't have the final
here.
decision. That's it.
We have no decision. So if a place wants to open and they're commercial and it's within a commercial zone, they're allowed to open as long as they meet all the requirements.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so how about that Food Basics? Do you have a projected timeline for that one?
I think they've just started building, so I don't have the exact timeline, so I don't want to, but within the next year, probably you should see it open. And I think a lot of residents are excited to see that, have more choices.
That's it. It brings
competition.
Exactly. Competition. So then it can, readjust pricing perhaps.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's exciting. And with that, I think that's going to be an anchor store in a bit of a mall there. So we'll see some more commercial there. And again, we're pushing for some more commercial development. We have a good consumer or resident base now that warrants more commercial for sure.
And so I currently reside on in the Russell Township, though in Limoges.
Right.
There seems to be a very big difference between both sides. For the people that may not be aware, Limoges is split by Limoges Road, which is pretty much the main road there. It's a small community, though on one side it's a different township, and then on one side it's the Russell Township. And it seems to have expanded quite more on the other township, which is the Nation. And I wanted to question you about that. Do you foresee any future projects on the other side of the Limoges Road? It'd be nice to see some expansion.
Sure.
I may be more biased. I have a bit of interest in it growing, but yeah.
So absolutely, Mathieu. There's definitely a lot of interest. We have some developers that are there right now that have been doing some development, but everything, unfortunately, as of last month, is on hold because of water supply, and that's so. Within the rest of the municipality, so Embrun, Russell, we receive water from Ottawa. We treat the water from Ottawa. That's all kind of serviced that way.
The tap is much bigger for when it's
But
provided by Ottawa.
Limoges, pardon me, excuse me, Limoges receives its water from Clarence Rockland. and there is some investments now to increase capacity there. But right now they're coming up to their capacity, and so obviously it makes sense for that municipality to say, look, we're going to try to optimize our residential here before giving you more. So we have a great working relationship with Nation Municipality, and so right now every development that was even in the works is now has what we call an H, like a holding.
Yes.
Meaning we're in a holding pattern. We can't give it any more development until the water issues
It's
resolved.
water units per home that it's called, is it? Or
Well, at the end of the day, it's the capacity. They do
yeah,
not have. They have some capacity that's already promised, and we had capacity that was allocated to us, but that's tapped now, and we can't get more. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting this afternoon with a developer that's interested in doing some commercial development in Nation on the Russell side, which is a very exciting project. But there is no water in it, and as much as we want it, and we want to do everything we can to support it, it's just not there until they resolve that. So the next question is, when is that going to be resolved?
that's it. What's the solution, right?
I know I believe it's the provincial government between Clarence and Nation. They received a grant to expand the pipe capacity, but the timeline on that I'm not aware of. But I am meeting, like I said, this afternoon with this developer, with the Nation Municipality, and with our staff as well. To see where this is going, what's the timeline, and so on. So there's definitely interest, with Calypso there, with there is opportunity for more commercial development and definitely
Yes.
more residential development, and that will come in time. But we have to resolve this water issue. And
That's it.
the water aspect, and that's a reality. A lot of municipalities, there's the water capacity, but then there is the gray water or sewage capacity piece as well. And so I can't speak for Nation because I don't have their details, but I know, say, for Russell, we're coming to terms in the next, I think, 6-7 years. We have to find some solutions to our wastewater capacity.
There's very big infrastructure nuances
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
be
yeah,
figured out
absolutely.
to
Like,
expand these
so,
communities.
and it's interesting because a lot of there's also a big discussion on private systems, right? So you can develop now, the technology is getting to the point where you can develop a community and have your own wastewater treatment plants within that, because they've become that efficient. But there's still rules around that, right? The builder is happy to do it, but after they're done and they leave, the municipality has to take it over. So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of rules.
How do you
around
make
that.
all that
Yeah.
profitable and
Just just affordable, right?
fair?
And
Yeah.
and so it's a question of, this technology is coming up now, and I think that's going to be a big support for development down
Good.
the road.
I'm
But
glad
it's
to
not
hear.
there yet. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that there may be some future solutions coming because, right now we represent actually two builders in Limoges, and they're working on a development, and the land is all developed, but exactly they don't have the water permits or water units to be able to keep expanding upon Limoges, and they have turned to buying land or lots from other builders that did get their permits to be able to keep expanding their business. So it's
It's a challenge
it's very
for
tricky,
sure.
very tricky.
And so, Mathieu, the other aspect of that is that we had this capacity, and then all of a sudden, because every year they kind of review their capacity, because capacity is determined based on average use, right? And so based on, okay, we've got 1,000 residences here, and the average use is so much, so technically we have this much, and so on. It's a little bit like, planning how much you're going to spend on gas next year, kind of thing. But it doesn't always work, and trends change. And so all of a sudden we had that capacity, and now we, from one year to the next, even with some builders that already received the capacity, we had to say, sorry, you're being put on hold.
Okay.
So it is definitely a challenge, but we're working with the municipality, with Nation, to
And
try
it
to
doesn't
solve that.
seem to be as much as a challenge for Embren and Russell because you're plugged into Ottawa.
Yeah,
That's the
we have capacity in Ottawa. I wouldn't say it's unlimited because we have deals with Ottawa as well.
Fair.
But the piping allows us to have a lot more capacity for sure. Our challenge now in and Russell will be the wastewater in the next 5 to 10 years. We need to figure that out.
Yeah. So, for the people that are maybe looking to move into the Russell Township, do you have any advice as to where it may be a nice upcoming area to move to, or a future project that may be a good area for a future resident that's considering coming down? I keep wondering, and I know it's a lot of farmland, so there must be restrictions, but why doesn't Russell or Embrun expand more towards the 417? Because more and more so, the population that lives there seems to have jobs in Ottawa, the more urban area, and they'd like the commute to be shorter for sure, right? Is there a specific area that you think is
So
beneficial for?
a couple of points, Matthew. So in terms of boundary expansions of the villages, because really at the end of the day, it's all about the village boundary for major projects or expansions, right? And so that's part of our official plan, which is directed by the United Counties of Prescott-Russell. So United Counties of Prescott-Russell has an official plan for all the property outside of urban core. And then we have an official plan for our urban core villages. And
Okay.
so every now and then when we review the official plan, which we're just doing right now, it's in following with the county plan. Right now we've added a little bit of space, but it has to be always kind of like right next to it. And so depending on what direction we go, there's very limited ability to kind of say, hey, let's just all move this way. The other aspect that's really important for us, and right now that's a big push, and I know some of the residents don't like that, is intensification. Because for us, in terms of efficiency, if I'm running a sewer line and a water line on this street, is it better for me to have, say 20 individual residences, or have 40 families living in, say, I don't know, row housing, right? It's the same pipe that goes by, it's the same sewer line, and I'm getting a lot more, not me getting more, but the residents are getting a lot more value out of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's one road, 40 homes, as opposed to one road, 20 homes.
Yes.
Of course, there's traffic rules and stuff like that go with that, but in our communities in the past, we've always had this, you really, small towns, large properties. And if you look at, Orleans, whatever, it's not like that. It's really cookie cutter right next to each other, because the closer you are, the more people you put per square kilometer, the more efficient you're running the municipality, right? So when we look at development or growing, it's always trying to push growth within the urban area as opposed to expanding the urban area. It's very difficult to expand the urban area, and rightfully so. So, and it all makes sense financially for the residents from a tax perspective and everything else, except, and we hear it all the time, is if I'm living here and all of a sudden they're building a 3-story, 18-unit place next to mine. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Put it down there.
That's it.
It's not in my backyard.
Yeah.
That's the reality, right?
Yeah.
So you were asking the question, where is a good place to go? It's a very personal question, really, because it depends on what you like. I'm very fortunate. I moved in a beautiful 2-story home on a cul-de-sac when I was in 95. I found the right place for the right amount of money, and for me, it was already established, so I knew what my neighbors were, and there was no more surprises. We have people that, a beautiful house, and there's a field behind with a beautiful sunset. And next year there's going to be row houses there. Yeah. So you have to really pay attention to that. Our value is still there compared to Ottawa, obviously. Now with the added infrastructure, with the rec complex and everything else, I think it's a great communities to bring up a family. And
Agreed.
And I think we're not going to slow down our pace of growth right now. And I know a lot of some of our residents, I should say, want to keep that small town feel. We're trying to push for that. We have a community development officer now, as opposed to just an economic development officer that is all about trying to grow that community cohesiveness, working with organizations like Lions Club, Kins Club, Optimist Club, and so on, to really emphasize the value of that connectivity that we have. And we have these amazing events like the Meet Me on Main Street that's coming up in Russell this year, obviously the fair and so on. So we have so many opportunities for families to get together and everything. And that to me is the value of our community. And I'm very proud of it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it when you speak about the community. It comes from the heart. You know.
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You know it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Let's move on to the future vision of the township. What do you see the township looking like 10 years from now?
Sure. So 10 years from now, I think the most important, and depending who's there, but for me, I hope that our community stays a close-knit community. Like I said, we're investing a lot into that because as we grow, it does bring concerns. I go to the grocery store to pick up one item, and it takes me a half an hour, 45 minutes because I keep meeting people that I know, and I want to make sure that we maintain that.
Yes.
Because that to me is the best part of where I live in Embrun. That's the best part for me is, just connecting with people, and you feel that you're part of something, as opposed to I come from Montreal, so I know the other side of it where, someone looks at you and you go, why are you looking at me? I don't want that for our municipality. It's nice. We have a great community. We have great organizations. So I'm hoping that 10 years from now, yes, we'll have grown. I'm hoping for me, it's very important. I've always been en français, on dit un fiscaliste, like I'm a numbers person. That's my training in the background. I want to make sure that we have a good balanced budget, that we live within our means as a municipality, but that we're able to offer these important services. We talked about library, the rec complex, so that our community is able to live and enjoy life within our community. And so I'm hoping 10 years from now that we're in that position, that we're not taxing ourselves out of the market where residents don't want to live there. So it's finding the right balance. And also on the environmental thing, I think I didn't mention it. We just started composting this year. Some residents say, we don't want that. It's more money. It's a little bit more money. But, like Ottawa's been doing it since 2010. It's the right thing to do. And yes, there's going to be some growing pains, but it's so important for the future, for our kids' future. I mean, I'm going to be around for a few more years, but then someone else has to take over. And I want to make sure we leave it the same or better than what we got it.
That's
and
definitely
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And especially now in the current economic climate where we have buddy on the other side of the border where it's drill, baby, drill. You really have to think about the future. And so I'm hoping 10 years from now, we have a community that's considering that's thriving with that small town feel. Yes, we'll be larger than we are now with more residents, but hoping to maintain that small town feel.
I love the vision. I really hope that it does maintain, like you said, because, as I spoke to you earlier about, I come from a small community down north, and that's what we have, right? It's a small town called Hearst, or there's a lot of people that live in Embrun and Russell, or even Limoges that come from Hearst, Kapuskasing, these small French and English bilingual communities, and it's very tight-knit. You recognize every vehicle on the street. You know everyone, right? And that's more personable. It's just more enticing and inviting as a community. And I believe that's why many people from the north moved into Embrun, Russell, Limoges, Marionville as well, because it feels like home.
Yeah.
In Limoges, I feel like I'm at home. If I were to move in a bigger urban area like Ottawa, it would have been a bit of a culture shock, I'd say, or a very big difference from up north. So that's
absolutely
very enticing thing.
So for us, I'm from Montreal. I'm from a big city. My wife's from Sudbury. When we found Embrun, it's going to sound stupid of me, but I actually didn't even know there was French outside of Quebec because I'm from Montreal.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to Embrun, we moved there because we found a good price at a good house at a good price. And we were looking at Ottawa, and we found this awesome deal there. So when we drove out, wow, beautiful house. We picked the house, moved in. The first day I went to the post office, everyone was speaking French, and I'm fluent in French, so it's no issue. But I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool you guys speak French. And she looked at me, she goes, everyone speaks French.
That's it. Well, you know what? You surprised me coming in. I don't know why I assumed you may not speak French, but it's important, and that's what that's one
That's a
thing
cool,
that
that's
keeps
a
the
nice thing.
community tight knit is.
I think it's awesome. My kids went to so my wife's unilingual English. She understands French, but unilingual English. But we were able to send our kids to a completely French school.
Yes.
And
Well, you know what? We could pivot the conversation to French a bit as well, I
ben, c'est
think.
comme tu veux. Moi, ça me
Oui,
dérange pas.
oui.
Moi, ça flotte d'un bord ou de l'autre.
Ben oui, certainement. Regarde, on pourrait peut-être discuter puis retourner un petit peu sur les projets à venir dans la municipalité, comme ça
Sure.
justement
Ben, c'est
les
toi
gens qui aimeraient écouter la conversation
certainement,
au
Mathieu,
moins ils
c'est
ont la
toi qui
chance.
dirige.
OK. Ben regarde, je vais te reposer quelques questions qu'on a retourné. Ben, je vais retourner un petit peu. Quel développement ou investissement que tu vois à venir dans le township?
Mais là, il va falloir que je revoie la vidéo, qu'est-ce que j'ai répondu en anglais.
Ouais.
Voilà. Je te dis, pour nous autres, en ce moment, c'est important le développement. Au niveau développement résidentiel, ça continue à avancer. Écoute, nos permis de développement dans le premier quart de l'année, on en a un peu plus que l'année passée, puis ça, c'était une année record. On continue à développer résidentiellement. Puis ça, c'est quelque chose qui commence déjà depuis longtemps. Puis c'est comme un gros train qui avance à une certaine vitesse. Fait que ça ne va pas ralentir d'aussitôt. Moi, je pense qu'il est important maintenant, les investissements qu'on cherche à amener dans notre communauté, c'est l'industriel puis le commercial. Industriel, parce qu'on a un beau parc industriel où ce que le gouvernement provincial nous a aidé, nous supporte pour développer ce parc industriel-là. Parce qu'au niveau de taxation, 100 000 de valeur industrielle nous rapporte beaucoup plus, trois fois plus d'ailleurs qu'un résidentiel. Fait que si on peut augmenter là, je rajoute des emplois dans la communauté et de deux, j'ai besoin d'aller chercher moins de taxes chez les résidents.
C'est ça, c'est un bénéfice
C'est un
au
win-win
net.
for sure, oui,
Ouais.
absolument. Puis après ça, quand on parle du commercial, le commercial, c'est aussi très important parce que c'est pas autant que l'industriel, c'est le double. Fait que déjà, ça enlève un petit peu de demande sur le résidentiel, mais ça rajoute des services aussi.
Exactement.
La seule chose, c'est que les résidents doivent comprendre que c'est pas la municipalité qui contrôle, c'est quoi les business qui rentrent. On n'a aucun contrôle.
Mais
C'est un
tantôt,
autre
tu en as
magasin de
mentionné
pizza.
une, Food Basics,
Oui,
par exemple.
oui, c'est ça.
Oui.
Oui, ça, on est super content de voir Food
Moi
Basics
aussi.
arriver. Oui. Ça va rajouter beaucoup à notre communauté. Écoute, fait qu'on est bien content de voir ça. Puis ça, il y a un nouveau comme genre centre d'achat qui va être là. Ça, c'est des magasins Ancre. Ancre? Non, Ancre, ça ne se dit pas en français. Anchor. Comment tu dirais ça en français, Mathieu?
Est-ce que c'est Big... Non, pas Big Box.
Non, mais c'est Anchor Store, fait que c'est ce qui va amener d'autres magasins.
OK.
Dans un genre de petit centre d'achat.
Oui, un genre de plaza.
C'est ça, exactement.
OK.
Fait que ça, on est bien content de voir ça développer.
Oui.
Puis Food Basics, ça va vraiment attirer beaucoup de monde là. Fait que ça va ouvrir, ça va être une bonne opportunité pour d'autres magasins à ouvrir dans ce coin-là.
Certainement. Puis de mon point de vue aussi, ça va apporter un petit peu plus de compétition. Fait que potentiellement enlever peut-être un petit monopole puis aider pour les prix, là, parce que...
Ça peut pas être méchant, for sure.
Ouais.
C'est bon, puis ça rajoute des emplois pour nos étudiants aussi. Fait que
Bien sûr.
c'est un win-win à ce niveau-là.
C'est important, ça.
Au niveau investissement, la municipalité est en train d'investir 105 millions sur notre projet de complexe récréatif. Ça, c'est le plus gros projet jamais entamé en municipalité.
Ouais.
Fait qu'on est super fiers de ça. On est un petit peu nerveux, c'est sûr, avec tout ce qui se passe avec les tarifs puis tout ça, mais on travaille très proche avec notre développeur pour s'assurer qu'on est à temps et au budget. On travaille aussi très fortement avec notre MPP, Stéphane Sarrazin, pour s'assurer qu'on a fait des demandes d'octroi pour ce projet-là. Puis on a les doigts croisés. On s'attend de savoir quelque chose d'ici les prochains mois, 2 mois, là, pour nous aider à ce niveau-là. Mais on a un bon plan financier là-dessus. Fait que ça a déjà été entamé déjà de 2018. Là. On met de l'argent de côté là-dessus. Alors, on est dans une bonne position pour ça. Puis ça va être un game changer pour nous.
Ah, certainement. Et je me demandais c'est où est-ce que je pourrais jouer au hockey. Comme je t'ai dit, moi, ça fait 2 ans que je suis dans la communauté. Mais là, tu viens de me dire qu'il y aurait 3 glaces là, qui s'en viendraient dans ce centre récréationnel-là.
On en a 2 en ce moment, mais il va y avoir une amalgamation. Fait que ça, c'est 2 autres choses que le conseil doit décider. C'est qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec, une fois qu'en 2026, fin 2026, quand on va ouvrir le complexe, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec les 2 autres arénas qu'on a, avec le centre communautaire qu'on a en Brun. Puis ça va justement venir au conseil ici à l'automne, probablement, pour commencer à discuter ça avec les résidents.
Merveilleux, merveilleux. Puis aussi, tantôt, tu parlais d'une bibliothèque qui s'en viendrait à Embrun aussi, puis que ça pourrait aider à garder encore le feeling de la communauté, garder la communauté ensemble. Puis ça donne un centre aussi à avoir des activités communautaires, comme que tu mentionnais, là.
C'est ça, on est super content d'un partenariat qu'on a avec la Coop d'Embrun, une belle organisation qui vraiment est là pour supporter la communauté, pour aider à vraiment améliorer notre communauté. Alors, on est très content de travailler avec eux. Ça va être dans le centre du village d'Embrun, une belle bibliothèque nouvelle, construite, on dit en anglais purpose-built, alors construite pour être une bibliothèque. Alors, ça va vraiment être façonné. On va avoir un petit jardin pour les enfants, comme il y a à Russell. Et puis, comme on avait parlé tantôt, les bibliothèques, oui, il y a encore des livres physiques qui sont là, puis c'est une bonne place pour aller chercher des livres, mais il y a tellement d'autres choses qui se passent dans les bibliothèques. Maintenant, c'est vraiment un centre communautaire. C'est un petit genre mini-centre communautaire. Les groupes communautaires peuvent venir, peuvent avoir de la place pour se rencontrer. Il y a des cours qui se donnent. Il y a toutes sortes d'affaires. Fait que ça s'en vient aussi fin 2026. On est super excités de voir ça arriver.
Merveilleux, merveilleux. Et puis, si je peux te redemander la question, on en a parlé un peu en anglais, mais c'est quoi ta vision au long terme, là? 10 ans d'ici, c'est quoi ta vision pour le township?
Bien, écoute, Mathieu, le plus important pour moi, c'est... Nous, on a déménagé en Brun en 95. J'ai élevé mes enfants là. C'est une super belle municipalité pour avoir une qualité de vie où ce que tu te sens, que tu connais le monde. Tu es vraiment bien entouré. Tes enfants sont bien entourés, bien encadrés, comme on dit. On grossit en ce moment, mais il y a toujours une inquiétude qu'on va devenir trop gros. On va-tu devenir comme Orleans? Tu sais? Puis je dis rien de mal avec Orleans, mais il y a du monde qui ne veulent pas ça. Puis nous autres, l'idée, c'est vraiment oui, on va grossir, mais on va maintenir notre small town feel. Fait que ma vision dans 10 ans, c'est vraiment qu'on a vraiment une communauté très proche, avec beaucoup d'opportunités pour les résidents de s'impliquer, de se connaître et pour avoir des activités locales avec une richesse culturelle franco-ontarienne, anglaise aussi, où ce qu'on peut vraiment avoir une belle vie, puis avoir un bel emplacement pour élever nos enfants, pour avoir des belles familles, puis vraiment planter des belles racines pour le futur. Là, pour tes enfants reviennent. Moi, j'ai 2 enfants en ce moment, ils sont à l'extérieur du village, mais j'espère que j'en ai un qui se marie là, au mois de mai, mais qu'il y ait des enfants peut-être qui vont redéménager, puis ils veulent ça, ils veulent le feeling d'être dans une petite communauté.
Je leur souhaite.
Ouais, c'est
Je
ça,
leur souhaite.
exactement.
Moi aussi, j'aime bien le feeling, là. Comme je t'ai dit, ça fait 2 ans que j'habite à Limoges maintenant, puis ben, je viens d'une petite communauté au nord, puis je me sens à la maison. Je me sens dans un bon centre, je me sens confortable. On voit encore un petit peu de verdure autour. Ça, c'est bien plaisant,
Ouais, c'est
ce
important.
feeling-là. Ouais, vraiment. Puis je pense que c'est peut-être une raison pourquoi que beaucoup des gens du Nord, c'est attrayant pour eux autres, justement, là, la région est-ontarienne. Mais vraiment, là, le township de Russell, ça semble être un hotspot qu'on se retrouve beaucoup à.
Absolument. J'ai beaucoup d'amis de Hearst puis de Cap, de Sudbury. Fait que oui,
Oui,
absolument,
oui.
tu as raison.
Ah oui. Ben regarde, on est un peu strappé en temps, on a changé ça en français, puis merci beaucoup. Je pense que les gens vont apprécier ça. Je vais te poser la question signature du podcast, puis j'aimerais te la poser en français et en anglais. Quel est ton asset qui est le plus précieux pour toi?
Ben, moi, c'est facile. Ça serait ma famille. Pour moi, il n'y a pas plus important que la famille, puis de la façon que la famille est encadrée. Puis on parle d'assets comme ça. Si tu parlais physique, asset physique, j'avais une Corvette pour longtemps que j'aimais bien.
Ah ouais.
Mais je ne l'ai plus. Mais it was a time en tout cas. Mais tu sais, au niveau de the most efficient, financially efficient asset, if we speak, outside of the family, c'est sûr que ma propriété, ma maison,
Certainement.
c'est vraiment, on a investi beaucoup dans la maison. On a eu ça à très bon prix. Puis, je veux
Comme
dire,
tu dis, dans un cul-de-sac comme ça, là, il y a
ouais,
bien des gens
ouais.
qui aimeraient ça, là, c'est merveilleux.
Puis, fait que pour moi, ça serait ça. Mais avec ce que je voudrais emporter avec moi, anywhere I go, ça serait la famille à 100%. no doubt about it.
So if I can also ask you the question in English, which is the signature podcast question, what is your most prized asset, Mike?
Yeah, so the most prized asset without thinking about it is my family. This is to me the most important. It's something that I've nurtured and worked with ups and downs. And so my wife and my two kids are what's most important to
That's
me.
beautiful.
Having said that, if you want to be more practical, I did have a Corvette for a little while, and I missed that one. But that was a great asset in terms of investment because I bought a used one. It was a '98. I got it in 2006, had it for like 7 years, and sold it for $1,000 more than I bought it.
Wow.
So for a car, that's a pretty good value.
That was a profitable trade
Yeah,
there.
exactly, and enjoyed it, right?
Yeah,
And,
of course.
Which doesn't like where normally vehicles are not a good asset in terms of that. Obviously,
definitely.
the house is a great asset in terms of, if I look at all the investments I made over the years. Where the tech boom back in the day and everything else, like the real estate was the best investment. And had I known what I know now, I would have invested more in real estate. But
It's very good to invest in
Yeah.
tangible assets,
absolutely,
right?
yeah. And it's interesting as time goes by, people say, "Oh, that worked in the past; it doesn't work anymore." But it has held true, in ever since I was kind of age of starting to invest, and I wish I would have.
Yes. If you have a vision for the long term, real estate is a beautiful
Yeah.
avenue.
Yeah.
And you have the peace of mind, you have something to live in, right? So
Well, and that's the other aspect, right?
Yeah.
Before you move to the second home and everything else, that is, I mean, the value of our property's gone up. We've put money in it, but it's never been lost, and so I think that is, the practical, most valuable asset for sure.
That's it. That's it. Well, Mayor Tarnowski, thank you very much for the opportunity. I thank you for coming onto the podcast. Merci beaucoup d'être venu sur le podcast. J'apprécie ton temps. And hopefully this is not the last one. It was a great episode.
Anytime, Mathieu, ça m'a fait énormément plaisir. You had some great questions, and congratulations on doing this. The added value you give in terms of the service that you provide, I think is excellent, and people should be happy with that for sure.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you.
All right, merci.
Pleasure.